This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, guys, let's get started. So, I would like to welcome you all to this Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager online training session. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kashif. I am from India. I have somewhere around 13 years of practical IT experience. I am a BSc IT graduate from Mumbai University. And after completing my graduation, I started working in IT field wherein I worked in SCCM level 1, level 2, level 3 team. Now I'm working as a SCCM architect. So I design and implement SCCM for companies. Apart from SCCM, I have expertise on various other technologies like Intune, Active Directory, application packaging, Azure, PowerShell. I am a um, BSc IT graduate, and apart from this implementation task, I am involved in training, wherein I do classroom training, online training, and corporate training, wherein I have trained more than 28,000 students globally. These are my uh, blog address, email address, and Skype ID. And let me take you to the next slide, which talks about the duration of this training. So, daily basis, Monday to Saturday, right? We are going to start the session at 7 a.m., right? 7 to 8 a.m. IST, Indian Standard Time. Okay. So, which is like 8:30 p.m. EST, US Eastern Time, and 7:30 p.m. CST, that is Central Time. Okay. So that is the time. We are going to start at 7 a.m. India time, daily basis, Monday to Saturday, and that training session will go uh, for 1 hour, and it is gonna take like 35 days to finish all the topics. Okay, that is about the duration and the timing, guys. Now let's talk about SCCM. So this product is started by Microsoft. So Microsoft is the manufacturer of this product. Microsoft has many other product like Windows operating system. All Windows operating system belongs to Microsoft, like Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows 11, Windows Server 2003, 2012, 2008, 2016, 19, 2022, right? All Windows related operating system belongs to Microsoft. Similarly, you have applications of Microsoft. There are many applications of Microsoft like Microsoft Office, Visio, Project, Silverlight. Similarly, these there are many other tools available by Microsoft like Exchange Server, right? That is from Microsoft. SQL Server, that is from Microsoft. Similarly, SCCM is one of them, which is basically to control devices, to deploy application, to deploy policies to the devices, to deploy updates, to deploy operating system to the devices. So basically, you will have complete control on the devices through this product. So this product started in the year 1994, as you see in the table, as SMS 1.0. So SMS 1.0 is what? A system management server. That's the old name of this product, system management server. Then in the year 2000, in the year 1999, they released this SMS 2.0. Then SMS 2003. Then they changed the name from SMS to SCCM in the year 2007. So what is SCCM? SCCM is System Center Configuration Manager. That's the second name given by Microsoft to the same product, right? Then SCCM 2012, SCCM 1511, these three products released in the year 2016, right? Then these three products released in the year 2017. These three products released in the year 2018. These three products released in the year 2019. And in the year 2019 October, they released MECM 1910. MECM is what? Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, MECM 1910. These three products released in the year 2020. These three products released in the year 2021, and then in the year 2022 they released MECM 2203, 2207, and then 2211. This version released in the month of November 2022, last year. Okay, in the month of November. Now in the month of March, they are going to release a new version. This month they will have a new version, right? Every like 4 months they are releasing a new version. Okay, so this is the latest and greatest version of SCCM, MECM 2211. So that's about the historical background of this product. Okay, now previously we used to take exams and become SCCM certified, but now the exams are retired. We don't have any exam. So previously we used to have 20-243. This is gone. Then 70-703. This is also expired. So we do not have any exam at the moment. Now, so in SCCM there are some sites. Okay, three sites are there: central administration site, primary site, and secondary site. You guys, if you would like to make a note of it, you guys can do that. Okay, so there are three sites in SCCM. So central is the optional site, then we have primary, and then we have secondary. Okay, central administration site, primary site, and secondary site. These are the site server in SCCM, like this. Okay, so central will be sitting, will be like this. Then we have primary site and secondary site. 1 minute, guys. Okay, so we have three site server in SCCM: central, primary, and secondary. So central is what? It is an optional site. Primary is what? Mandatory site. And this one secondary is optional site. Central administration site need a database. Similarly, primary site needs a database, and secondary site also needs database. So they all need database. Okay, and all of them can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater. So you can install them on Windows Server. Now, how many devices you can manage in one central administration site server? The maximum device you can have is 825,000. One primary site can have maximum 175,000, and one secondary site can have maximum 15,000 devices. These are the three site servers in SCCM, and we have the limitation, the limit, maximum number of devices we can have is this one. In one central administration site hierarchy, in one primary site we can have maximum 175,000 devices, and in one secondary site you can have maximum 15,000 devices. Clear, guys? Everyone?
Yes, sir. Clear, 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 clear.
Yes, sir.
Now we would like to know what is central, what is primary, and what is secondary. Now in SCCM, so SCCM has three sites, right? So the site servers are part of SCCM actually, like this: CAS, primary, and secondary, right? So all these site servers, we call them as site servers. Okay, central is a site server, primary is a site server, and secondary is a site server. Now, what is a central administration site server? So central administration site server is like this. You see, we have, generally we don't install central administration site server in for to manage devices, because this is basically installed in big organization like Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, wherein you have like more than 200,000 devices to manage, right? So, but when you have this central administration site server, it will be always in big organization. Okay, so it will have a database to store the data. Okay, it will have what? Database. Now it is an optional site. Point number one, it is an optional site. Point number two, it will sit on the top of the hierarchy. So it will always be on the top. Wherever you install in any company, you have to have central on the top, then you will have primary, and then you will have secondary, like this. So who is on the top? The central is on the top.
Central.
Then in the middle, primary, and then bottom, secondary. Secondary will be at the bottom. Okay. Now, it is not mandatory that you have to have a central administration site. Point number one, it is an optional site server. So why do we need it? And when do we need it, right? So it is needed to manage primary sites. Suppose if you have more than one primary site servers, for example, PS1, and then you have another site server, PS2, then only you need a central administration site server, and it will be managing the site servers. If you do not have, suppose if you just have one primary site, if you do not have a primary site like this, then you don't need a central administration site. So you simply don't need this one. You will have one primary site. So primary will be uh, one single primary site server will not need any central administration site. Central comes into the picture, as you see, point number 4. Central comes into the picture when you have more than one primary site. Okay, when you have more than one primary site. And when do we need more than one primary site? When you have when you have more than 175, one primary site, you see, one primary site can manage how many devices? 175,000 devices. Now suppose you are running a company called ABC Private Limited, for example, and in that you have like more than 175,000 devices. What will you do? One primary site is not sufficient. So one primary site cannot handle the load of, for example, you have total, how many devices you have? Total you have like 250,000 devices. Okay, then one primary site cannot handle the load. Okay, so we need more than one primary site. So we will have like PS1, and then we will have PS2. Now we can distribute the load. So for example, one primary site will manage 125,000 devices, another primary site will manage 125,000 devices, right? If you add this one and this one, the count will come 250,000 devices. So one primary site, if it is not able to manage the handle the load of the devices, we need more than one primary site. And the moment we have more than one primary site, we can have CAS. CAS will be managing devices. CAS comes into the picture when you have more than one primary site server. It needs database, okay, to store the data. Now from where it will get the data, from where it will collect data? As you see, point number 5, it needs database. It will collect data. So primary central will collect the data in the database. From where? From the primary side database. So each primary will also have database. So DB, for example, this one is primary site 1, it is storing the data here. Primary site 2, it is storing data here. So central will collect the data from the primary side database. So whatever the data primary collected, it's going to pass on to the central database. It's going to pass on to the central database like this. So central will be collecting the data from primary side database. Okay, now it does not interact with client machines. For example, you have like thousands and thousands of computers, right? For example, you have like 250,000 devices, but they do not talk to central. Central will not have any communication with the devices, right? They will not be talking to the central. They will be talking to the primary and secondary, not to the central. Central will always be talking to primary, like primary 1 and then primary 2 and then primary 3. For example, there are 3 primary site server. It will be talking to the primary. It has got nothing to do with the client. It will not talk to the client machines. Does not process client data, does not support client assignment. So it has got nothing to do with the client. Okay, how many clients you can have in one central administration site hierarchy? Suppose your architecture is like this. You have three primary site server, and let's say you have some secondary. For each primary you have some secondary site like this. So the total number of devices in this hierarchy, in the total hierarchy, you can have maximum 825,000. That's the maximum limit. Okay, because in one central we cannot go beyond this number. Okay, and how many primary site can be there in how many primary site can be there in one central administration site hierarchy? 25. So primary 1, primary 2, primary 3, it can go up to primary 25. So one central can have maximum 25 primary site server. Okay, that's the maximum limit. And where will you install central? You can install this on Windows Server 2012 or greater. Okay, all good guys? Any question in this one?
No, sir. We got it.
No, sir.
So generally we do not install central. Okay, suppose you are uh, working in a company and you don't find central administration site, then you don't get surprised, because central comes into the picture when you have more than one primary. Okay, And central is not for small organization. When you have big organization, if you are working in big organization like IBM, HCL, Deloitte, Cognizant, then only you will find central. In normal size company like medium size organization, small organization, you do not find central. Central will not be there. Okay, so that is central administration site server.
Sir,
Hmm.
so what will be my organization hierarchy, like in Cognizant? If they will ask what is your organization hierarchy?
In you are in Cognizant, so you Cognizant has, I think, more than 300,000
Okay.
employee all over the globe, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you will definitely have a central administration site. Okay, I don't know, I will have to check, but as per my experience and the company architecture, right? I mean the number of employees in the company, because one primary cannot handle the load of 300,000 devices. That's not possible. What is the maximum limit of primary? Maximum limit of primary is 175,000,
75.
right? 1 lakh
Yes.
75,000. But your number of devices is more. So how will you
Yes.
manage? You need more than one primary. When you have more than one primary, then you need central. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So
Okay, sir.
it is an optional site server. Central is what? Optional. It will sit on. Okay, we have already talked about central. Now we are talking about the primary. Now let's talk about primary site server. Primary is the main site. Okay, forget about central now. Central, we basically need to manage primary site through central, but the main site, the heart of SCCM, is this one, primary. Primary is the mandatory site. Without primary you cannot manage devices. If you don't have primary, you don't have SCCM. Simple as that. So primary is basically the heart of SCCM. So it will be managing devices in well connected networks. For example, there are 50,000 devices where in New York. New York is like headquarter. Okay, 50,000 devices are there, like some servers, some laptops, some computers. So one primary will be able to manage these 50,000 devices, right? Because the maximum limit is 175,000. 50,000 devices it will be managing, because all of them are in well connected network, good connectivity. Okay. But some devices will be in different location. For example, there is another branch office, and that's in Mumbai. Okay, and 2000 devices in there in Mumbai. Another branch office that is in London, for example. Okay, so 5000 devices in London, right? Another branch office, for example, Mexico, and 3000 devices are there, right? So there will be another, like, some headquarter and branch offices. So we have more, some branch offices, 3000 devices, 5000 devices, and 2000 devices. You see, if you calculate the number of devices outside New York, how many devices are there outside New York? 10,000. 10,000 devices, you see. Mexico, London, and Mumbai. Who will manage these devices? Primary you cannot manage, because as you see, primary will manage the devices only when well connected network. So primary will be managing devices in New York, because New York is like on well connected network. Primary is there in the same location, right? Primary site is located in the same location, and it will be managing these 50,000 devices. So who will manage these computers which are there in branch offices? Hmm? It will be managed by secondary site server. So let's say secondary 1 for Mumbai, then secondary 2 for London, and secondary 3 for Mexico. So all secondary will take the policies and contents from primary. Secondary will not have its own policies and contents. It will be taking the policies and contents from the primary side server. So Mumbai devices will take the policies and contents from SS1 secondary site. London devices will take the policies and contents from SS2 secondary site. And Mexico devices will be taking the policies and contents from SS3 primary secondary site. Clear? So
Yes.
primary side will be managing secondary side as well. So it will be managing these 50,000 devices. So talk about this one, primary side. So what it is doing, it is managing these 50,000 devices, plus it will be managing secondary side as well in the branch offices. Okay. So it's a mandatory side. It manages client machines in well-connected network. So let's say it is managing these 50,000 devices in New York, plus it will also be managing devices. It will also be managing secondary side, for example SS1, SS2, SS3 in branch offices, SS4, SS5. It will be managing secondary side as well. As you see, manage secondary side. Now it needs database. So primary basically needs what? Database to store the data, for data storage. Just like central also needs database, primary also needs database. So what all things it will collect, and from where it will collect? It will collect the information from the devices. For example, it is going to collect the information of 50,000 devices of New York, right? So it will collect those information and pass it to the databases. It will store the data of these 50,000
Hello,
devices in its database. Huh?
hello,
Yes,
hello, hello,
yes,
Kasif.
yes,
Hello, Kasif.
yes, go ahead.
Yes. So secondary side comes data
Secondary side
hello
collect data from the devices. Okay.
from devices. Okay.
Yes.
And primary side send data to secondary, and secondary side send data to cache side.
Secondary sends data to primary and primary sends to central. Okay.
Okay, okay, okay.
So primary will be collecting data from 50,000 devices on New York, plus it will be taking data from the secondary side database. So secondary will also have database. Okay. Let's say there are some secondary side, secondary 1 and secondary 2. It will also have database. So it is going to collect data from secondary database too, like this. Okay. So primary side is basically is a mandatory side. It manages client in well-connected network. It manages secondary side. It requires database. It collects data from client machine plus secondary side database, right? Then it will replicate the data to the central. Now, in case if central is there, then only this point is valid. For example, secondary has a database. It will be passing on the data to central database like this. But if central is not there, then it will not do anything, because this is conditional. If central is there, then only this point is valid. If central is not there, then it will not send data to anybody, right? Primary will keep the data on its own. Support client assignment. Clients are client machines are assigned to primary. It will be managed by primary. It supports maximum 175,000 client machines, and it will have maximum 250 secondary site server. Okay, so one primary can have how many secondary site? So like secondary 1, then secondary 2, and then it will keep on going up to secondary 250. 250 secondary site you can have maximum. And one primary site hierarchy, how many total devices? 175,000. And you can install this on Windows Server 2012 or greater. So that's a primary site server, guys. Okay. The primary is the main site in SCCM. Without primary, you cannot manage devices. If you don't have primary, you don't have SCCM. Okay. Now secondary side. This is the third side in SCCM. Secondary will be for branch offices. Okay, it is an optional site server. It is an optional, not mandatory. Okay, why optional? Because if you don't have branch office, you don't install secondary site. It cannot exist without a primary. Suppose if you have primary site in New York, this is in New York, right? Now if you don't have any other location, you don't install secondary. If you have other location, then only you install secondary site. For example, Mumbai branch office, 2000 devices are there. So from New York to Mumbai, it will very difficult for primary to manage devices on the remote network. It's on the WAN network, wide area network. It's very difficult for Mumbai. So yeah, for primary side. So we will install secondary side, and secondary will be taking the policies and contents from say primary, and it will pass on to the 2000 devices here in Mumbai. So secondary exists only with a primary. If primary is not there, then secondary cannot exist. It is used when you need to manage devices in remote location, right? When you manage devices in remote location to control network bandwidth, right? Now secondary needs SQL Express. So for example, you have primary here. In primary also has a database, right? And it is managing 50,000 devices in New York, right? It is managing 50,000 devices. Now I have one location called Mumbai. Mumbai has like 5,000 devices. So Mumbai, and I have a secondary site, secondary one. Secondary will also have a database, and it will be managing these 5,000 devices. Now secondary, yeah, and secondary will take the policies and contents from primary. Now secondary will be collecting the data of these 5,000 devices and then pass on to the database. Secondary will store it in its database. Now this database, you can have either SQL Express. Generally we go with SQL Express because this is free of cost, or you can have SQL Server, anything of your choice. So generally we go with this one because this one is free of cost. Okay, so we will this database is SQL Express. We will install SQL Express to store the secondary side database, right? And whatever the data it collects, these 5,000 computers data, right? These 5,000 computers data will go here, and then from there it is gonna pass on to the database. Now what will happen to this data? It is gonna pass on to the primary side database like this. So secondary is gonna pass on the data to primary side database. So as you see, it collects data from client machine and it will replicate the data to the primary side database. It supports 15,000 devices. So in Mumbai we have 5,000 devices, right? If you have like maximum 15,000 devices, it can manage. So one secondary can have maximum 15,000 devices. Okay, it does not interact with central administration side. Central is on the top. Central is talking to primary, but it is not going to talk to secondary. Okay, there will be no connection with central and secondary, and it can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater. So the architecture is like this, guys. For a small size company, let's say you have only one branch, one office, one location. We don't have any other location. For example, you have Houston, 5,000 devices in Houston. So who will manage these devices? So one primary site is sufficient. It will manage all these 5,000 devices. This is called standalone site. We don't have any secondary. We don't have any primary. I mean central. Only one primary is sufficient to manage all the devices here. Now second is for medium organization, medium size organization. 99% of time you will see this kind of architecture in companies. So you will have what? You will have send primary on the top, which will be managing 5,000 devices in Houston, right? What about the devices in Seattle, for example, 2,000 devices and 3,000 devices in Boston? So we will need secondary one to manage these 2,000 devices. We will need secondary two to manage these 3,000 devices, and it is gonna report to the primary like this. So this hierarchy will have primary with secondary. Now the third one, like Cognizant and other companies, it's for big organization, wherein you have one primary is not sufficient. We will have more than one primary. So primary one, and then primary two, and then primary three, and all of them will report to central administration site server like this. So in this hierarchy, we have central plus primary plus secondary. Okay, so that is the architectural diagram, guys. Now understand this one is the typical architecture for medium organization, medium size organization. So for example, you have primary site, the name of the primary site MECM PS, for example, and it is in New York headquarter, and there are like 10,000 devices. So it will be managing these 10,000 devices, right? So this primary is going to manage these 10,000 devices, and it is going to store the data in its database, right? Now, what about the devices which are in 2,000 devices in Mumbai, 2,000 devices in London, and 2,000 devices in Paris? Okay, you guys can hear me, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so who will be managing these devices? So, secondary, for example, secondary one, secondary two, and secondary three. So, this secondary will be taking the policies and contents from primary, right? And it will pass on to the devices in their regions like this. And it will collect the inventory of these 2,000 devices from Mumbai, and it will pass on to the database. Similarly, it will collect the inventory of these 2,000 devices and pass it to the database. Same thing here. Now then, whatever the data secondary collected, right, from the branch offices, it's gonna pass on to the primary. Okay, so we have talked about the three site servers in SCCM: central, primary, and secondary.
Hello, sir.
Got it?
Sir.
Yes.
Sorry, sir. Sir, what is policy actually? What can it define? Policy means.
Policy, like a deployment of any application, is a policy. Like instruction, suppose I have 5,000 devices in New York. How many? 5,000 devices in New York. I need to install Google Chrome. Okay, Google Chrome I need to install on these 5,000 devices. How do I install? What I will do, I will upload this to SCCM. For example, this is my primary site server, right? So I will create this, upload this application, and then deploy the policy to these 5,000 devices. So deployment of any instruction, like I have to install Google Chrome in these 5,000 devices. So that is what? That's a policy for the deployment of Google Chrome. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, guys.
Yes. Kasif, what is a SQL server?
SQL Server is to store the data in a database. So we need data storage for each primary site, each site. primary, central, and secondary. So you have to have a database for that. So SQL Server is like a database. Okay, we have many other databases like MySQL. Then we have um, Sybase
So
database, Oracle
Kasif,
database.
Kasif, for
There is a
example, you say that Google Chrome install on 500,000 devices. So Google Chrome is a policy. What is a database? As a use called that SQL Server is as a database. So what is database?
database to store the data. Suppose your mobile. This is your mobile, right?
Right.
And on this mobile, you save my number. For example, you save my number. So where exactly it is
Yes.
storing? It is storing in the database, na?
Okay.
Clear? Okay, guys. So I see some new members. So we have Dharm. Um you joined late, I think. So can you introduce yourself?
My name is Dharampal. I am from Haryana.
Hmm.
I have a
Why?
graduation passed.
Okay.
Yes. By schooling from state board.
You have any IT experience?
Yes.
You are working somewhere?
Not now. Nowadays, not. I am on working.
Okay. So why do you want to learn SCCM?
For got a job because
Okay.
I see that in SSCM have a bulk of jobs.
Okay. So if you are interested to continue from tomorrow, you need to do the enrollment. Okay.
What are your enrollment?
Sorry.
But will you enrollment?
You message me on WhatsApp. I'll give you the details. Okay.
Okay, okay.
We'll meet tomorrow, guys, at 7 a.m. India time.
Thanks.
Bye
Okay,
now.
okay.
Okay, sir.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
sir. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. So can you share the recording?